First, I want you to know that I had no idea what Frank was planning when he fired you. I would have stopped it if I'd known. Known what exactly? I asked, sitting down across from her. Linda took a shaky breath. It's about the recipes, your recipes. The ones you developed for Sweet Dreams over the years. Frank said they were company property, I said, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. That's what Melissa told him to say. Linda's hands tightened around the teacup. But the truth is, Melissa has been selling them. The words hit me like a physical blow. Selling them? To whom? To Delicious Dreams, that new chain of upscale bakeries expanding across the Midwest. They've bought 20 of your original recipes so far, including your signature vanilla bean wedding cake and the caramel apple cheesecake. My mind reeled. Delicious Dreams was a corporate bakery chain known for mass-producing trendy desserts. The idea of my carefully crafted recipes being turned into assembly line products made me feel physically ill. But how? I managed to ask. Those recipes weren't written down in detail. I kept most of the special techniques in my head. Linda's face crumpled. That's why they needed you gone. Melissa, she's been filming you in the kitchen for months. Ever since she started working there. Hidden cameras, recording every technique, every little trick you used. She has hundreds of hours of footage. The room seemed to tilt sideways. All those months of trying to mentor Melissa, of sharing my knowledge freely, thinking I was helping the daughter of my longtime boss. She'd been studying me like a specimen under a microscope, stealing my life's work one video frame at a time. Frank knows about this. Linda nodded miserably. He does now. Melissa convinced him at first that modernizing the bakery meant letting you go. He didn't know about her deal with Delicious Dreams until last week when the first payment came in. $100,000 for the initial set of recipes. My grandmother's recipes, the techniques I'd spent 20 years perfecting, sold to a corporation that would strip them of their soul, turn them into mass-market products. Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. Because it's killing him. Linda's voice broke. Frank hasn't slept in days. The guilt, he keeps saying he betrayed not just you, but his father's legacy. Sweet Dreams was never supposed to be about money. It was about craft, about making people happy. She reached into her bag and pulled out a USB drive. This contains all of Melissa's video files, plus emails between her and Delicious Dreams. The contract she signed with them. Everything. I stared at the small device. What do you expect me to do with this? Whatever you want, Linda said simply. Take legal action. Go to the media. Or, she hesitated. Use it to save Sweet Dreams. Save Sweet Dreams? Why would I want to do that? Because it's dying, Rose. Without you, without your recipes being made properly, we've lost half our wedding cake orders. Regular customers are leaving in droves. Melissa's trendy new menu isn't bringing in enough business to cover costs. And once Delicious Dreams starts mass-producing your recipes, she didn't need to finish the thought. I sat back, processing everything. Part of me wanted revenge, wanted to expose Melissa's deception, watch Sweet Dreams crumble like an overbaked cookie. But another part remembered the smell of fresh bread in the morning, the joy on customers' faces when they saw their perfect wedding cakes, the legacy of Frank's father who'd given me my first real chance in a professional kitchen. I need time to think, I said finally. Linda stood up, leaving the USB drive on my desk. Of course, Jess, please don't let Sweet Dreams die because of Melissa's greed. It meant too much to too many people. After she left, I sat in my office for a long time, staring at the USB drive. Finally, I plugged it into my laptop. The evidence was overwhelming. Hours of secretly recorded video showing me at work. Emails between Melissa and Delicious Dreams executives haggling over prices for my recipes. A contract promising more payments for future recipes and techniques. But what caught my attention was an email thread about their expansion plans. Delicious Dreams wasn't just buying recipes. They were planning to open a location in every major city, using my recipes as their foundation. They even planned to call their wedding cakes Dream Cakes, a direct copy of Sweet Dreams' signature line. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Catherine Martinez, no relation, a lawyer who specialized in intellectual property rights. The second was to my old friend Danny Chen, a food writer for the Chicago Tribune. The story broke 3 days later. Photos of a younger Diana. Less polished, less refined, but happier somehow. Letters between her and Carlos. Newspaper clippings about their wedding in a small church in New Jersey. Diana Martinez, daughter of immigrants, had transformed herself into Diana Reynolds, Newport society queen. She buried her past so thoroughly that even Michael didn't know about his mother's first marriage. I hadn't told anyone about my discovery, hadn't even decided what to do with the information. But now, watching my mother fight back tears over the phone, I made my decision. The next day, I visited my friend Katie, who worked at the Historical Society. Remember that project you mentioned? About documenting Newport's social history through family archives? Katie's eyes lit up. The one Diana Reynolds has been pushing for. Of course, she's been insisting we feature the Reynolds family prominently, all about preserving the legacy of old Newport society. I smiled, pulling out copies of the documents I've found. How would you like an interesting addition to the exhibit? Oh my God. Katie's eyes widened as she read. Is this for real? Diana Reynolds was, previously Diana Rodriguez, née Martinez, daughter of Mexican immigrants, married in a Catholic church in New Jersey. She'll have a fit if this goes public. I know. I took a deep breath. That's what I'm counting on. The next few weeks were a blur of preparations. Diana threw herself into planning the vow renewal, micromanaging every detail. I played the dutiful daughter-in-law, attending dress fittings and menu tastings while quietly setting my own plans in motion. Katie and her team worked fast, preparing the Historical Society exhibit to coincide with the vow renewal weekend. Newport Society, The Hidden Stories would open the day before the ceremony. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was tired. Tired of watching my parents be treated like second-class citizens. Tired of seeing my husband turn into someone I barely recognized. Tired of Diana Reynolds dictating everyone's lives while hiding her own past. A week before the event, I received a thick envelope. My copy of the vow renewal ceremony program. On the cover was a lengthy description of the Reynolds family history, emphasizing their long-standing position in Newport society. Diana's bio noted she came from distinguished East Coast heritage. I traced the elaborate calligraphy with my finger, thinking about the young woman in those old photos. The one who'd smiled so brightly beside her first husband, who hadn't yet learned to hide her accent or change her name. Time to write your own story, Diana, I whispered. The stage was set. In 3 days, Newport society would gather to celebrate Diana and Richard's 30 years of marriage. But first, they'd learn the truth about the woman who'd spent 3 decades pretending to be something she wasn't. I just hoped Michael would forgive me for what I was about to do to his perfect family image. The Newport Historical Society building looked particularly elegant on Friday evening, illuminated by spotlights for the special exhibition opening. Diana had insisted on hosting a private preview for select society members the night before her vow renewal ceremony. After all, what better way to celebrate 30 years of Reynolds family prominence? Everything ready? I whispered to Katie as guests began arriving. She nodded, barely containing her excitement. The Rodriguez-Martinez documents are in the final display case. Diana hasn't made it to that section yet. I watched my mother-in-law holding court near the entrance, accepting compliments on her contribution to preserving Newport's heritage. She wore a designer suit in pale blue, her silver hair perfectly styled, every inch the society matron she'd spent 30 years becoming. Jennifer, darling. She beckoned me over. Senator Wilson was just asking about the merger. Have you heard from Michael today? He'll be here soon, I assured her. He wouldn't miss this. Of course not. Diana smiled at the senator. My son understands the importance of family legacy. If she only knew. The exhibition was beautifully done. Katie and her team had created an engaging narrative about Newport's social evolution, featuring photographs, documents, and personal items from prominent families. The Reynolds family history occupied a prominent early section, exactly as Diana had demanded. But the final section, titled Newport Society, New Perspectives, was where everything would change. Mother. Michael's voice carried across the room. He looked exhausted but handsome in his dark suit. Sorry I'm late. The merger negotiations. Never mind that now. Diana practically glowed. Come see the family display. They've done such a lovely job showcasing our heritage. I caught his eye, trying to convey a warning, an apology, something. but he was already being swept along in his mother's wake, nodding politely at her running commentary about Reynolds' family history. The crowd moved through the exhibition slowly, champagne glasses in hand, murmuring appreciatively at each display. I stayed near the back, watching, waiting. Then I heard it, a sharp gasp from the final section. Then another. "Deanna?" A woman's voice, shocked. Is this you?" I moved closer. A small crowd had gathered around the last display case. Inside was a large photograph. A young Diana in a simple white dress, beaming beside a handsome man in front of a modest church. The wedding announcement below clearly stated, "Diana Martinez weds Carlos Rodriguez." Diana pushed through the crowd, her face draining of color. Her perfectly manicured hands trembled as she stared at the evidence of her past life. "There must be some mistake," she said, but her voice shook. "This isn't. I never." "But it is you, isn't it?" Katie stepped forward, professional and polite. "We found these documents fascinating. Such a wonderful example of Newport's evolving social fabric. The marriage certificate, the Ellis Island records of your parents' arrival. Take it down." Diana's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm afraid we can't do that." Katie smiled apologetically. "These are now part of the historical record, donated quite legally." "By whom?" Diana's head snapped up, her eyes scanning the room until they found me. "You?" The room had gone silent. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. Every eye was on us. "Yes." I stepped forward. "I found the documents while helping organize the family papers. Quite a story, isn't it? The daughter of Mexican immigrants who reinvented herself as Newport royalty. How dare you?" She advanced on me, fury replacing shock. "You had no right. Like you had no right to exclude my parents from your vow renewal." I kept my voice calm. "Because they're new money? Because they might embarrass you in front of your society friends?" "Jennifer." Michael's voice strained. "What have you done? Show everyone the truth." I turned to face the crowd. Diana Reynolds wasn't born into Newport society. She married into it after divorcing her first husband, just like I did. The only difference is I never pretended to be something I'm not. The whispers started. Diana's carefully cultivated society friends exchanging looks, processing this revelation about their self-appointed social leader. "It's not." Diana looked around desperately. "Richard, tell them." But Richard Reynolds stood silent, staring at the photograph of his wife's first wedding. The wife he thought came from old East Coast money, who'd spent 30 years helping him maintain the Reynolds family image. "Why?" Michael asked quietly, coming to stand beside me. "Why did you do this?" "Because she needed to learn that you can't judge people based on where they come from." I met Diana's eyes. "Because my parents deserve respect, not condescension. And because the truth matters more than pretense." "Your parents?" Diana laughed bitterly. "This was about the vow renewal. You destroy my reputation over a guest list?" "No." I stepped closer. "This was about every snide comment, every dismissive look, every time you made them feel less than worthy. This was about showing everyone that the woman who looks down on new money was once Diana Martinez, who married for love in a small New Jersey church." The silence was deafening. Diana stood frozen, her perfect facade finally cracked beyond repair. Then Richard did something unexpected. He walked to his wife, took her hand, and faced the crowd. "Yes," he said clearly. "Diana came from a modest background. She worked her way through college, built a new life, helped me build Reynolds Financial into what it is today. And I've loved her for 30 years, not because of her name or her background, but because of who she is." Diana stared at her husband, tears threatening to ruin her perfect makeup. But Richard continued, looking at me. "She forgot where she came from. Forgot that worth isn't measured by family names or bank accounts." He turned to Diana. We both did. The moment stretched, heavy with possibility. Then Michael spoke. "The merger papers." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "I was going to announce it tonight. We're acquiring Rodriguez Global Industries." The CEO? He looked at his mother. "His name is Carlos Rodriguez Jr. When I met him, he mentioned his father had once been married to someone in Newport society. I thought it was a coincidence." Diana swayed slightly. "Carlos had a son." "Half-brother," Michael said quietly. "I have a half-brother. Were you ever going to tell me?" The perfect vow renewal weekend was unraveling. But something else was happening too. As the truth spread through the room, I saw genuine sympathy replace judgment in some faces. These people had known Diana for 30 years, respected her, followed her lead. Now they were seeing her as human for the first time. I was ashamed, Diana whispered, of being poor, of my accent, of not belonging. I thought if I became perfect enough, no one would ever know. Like no one was supposed to know about my parents' background. I asked softly, about their hard work, their success, their right to be proud of who they are. She looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time. I became what I hated most, didn't I? The kind of person who would have looked down on Diana Martinez. The exhibition opening ended early. The vow renewal ceremony was postponed for family reasons. But something else began that night, something unexpected and real. Richard insisted on meeting Carlos Rodriguez Jr., on acknowledging Michael's half-brother. Diana, stripped of her perfect facade, started talking about her past. Tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. She even spoke to Katie about expanding the exhibition to include other stories of Newport's social evolution. My parents? They were gracious when Diana called to apologize, to invite them not just to the rescheduled vow renewal but to help plan it. A true celebration, Diana said, of family, of love, of all the paths that brought us here. Michael and I had our own healing to do. He'd been angry at first, felt betrayed by my public revelation of family secrets. But as we talked, really talked, for the first time in months, we found our way back to each other. You were right, he admitted one night. About Mother, about the pretense, about what really matters. I've forgotten too. 6 months later, we gathered for a very different vow renewal ceremony. No elaborate society event, but an intimate celebration in the Reynolds garden. Diana wore a simple dress, reminiscent of the one in that old photograph. My parents sat in the front row, Mom crying happy tears, Dad beaming with pride. Carlos Rodriguez Jr. came with his family, watching Diana meet her grandson for the first time, seeing the way she slipped naturally into Spanish when talking to Carlos' wife. I realized something profound had changed. Thank you, she said to me at the reception, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Not for exposing my past, though maybe I needed that, but for making me remember who I really am. I looked around at our gathered families, old money, new money, no money, all the labels that had seemed so important now meaningless in the face of real connection. We all need reminding sometimes, I said, squeezing her hand. That's what family is for. Later, dancing with Michael under the stars, I thought about truth and pretense, about the courage to be authentic, about the real meaning of legacy. What are you thinking? He asked, pulling me closer. That sometimes, I smiled. The best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting real. The Newport Historical Society exhibition became a permanent installation, expanded to include many stories of social evolution and reinvention. Diana contributed her own narrative, finally proud of the journey from Diana Martinez to Diana Reynolds. And me? I learned that changing people isn't about humiliation or revenge. It's about holding up a mirror, about offering them a chance to remember who they really are, about creating space for truth to heal what pretense has broken. Sometimes the grandest celebrations aren't about maintaining appearances. They're about stripping them away, about finding the courage to be authentic, about discovering that our true stories are more powerful than any facade we try to maintain. That's a legacy worth celebrating.